everyone. There was just too much good news today not to do a news live stream. I had done a breakdown of the Wicked trailer like an hour or so ago, but I was like, there's just too much. It's just too much. The stories are too much. We can't not talk about them. So a lot of them actually, they're all trickling over from yesterday. And some of you had actually mentioned them to me, and you were like, are you going to cover them? And I was like, I'm not sure. But then as I looked into them, I was like, oh, we got to talk about this. So thank you for joining me for today's live stream. For those of you who are members who are able to join in the chat, and also those of you who might not be members but who are still watching, it's so nice to have you here as well. It's another heavy drama stream. Heavy drama. All right, so as always, the way it's going to work is that I'm going to go through each story. There'll be a chance for you. Thanks, BR177. There'll be a chance at the end of each section for you to ask me questions specifically about that story. And then, of course, as always, we'll finish with an Ask Me Anything for the final 10 minutes of the stream. All right, here we go. And as now is the norm, I'll have chapter times like these so that you can see what we're discussing. All right. Thanks, JLo1972. That's very nice of you for gifting those memberships. Thank you, Devin. Thank you, Stephen. Always the best way to support this channel, because not only does the channel benefit, but so does someone else who gets the gifted membership. Oh, wow, Alex, Adamsphere, thank you. And I missed you too, Big League Chew. It's good to be back. All right, after the long holiday weekend, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. All right, here we go. So, boop. All right, here's my arrow. Here we go. Joker 2. The reviews are in. And we're going to talk about what this means potentially for the movie. Zeke says that the ending is already up there and being spoiled. As you can see, that is one of the things we're going to discuss. And it's one of the reasons I felt that the movie shouldn't have premiered so early. And we're going to talk about why it did. All right, so we're going to start out with the reviews and the score. So I had thought that it was going to be, DC always has a tough time. But I was pretty shocked. It was rotten for a little bit, 59%. I tweeted about it at 59% last night. And then just about an hour or so afterwards, a couple more reviews trickled in, for Warner Brothers, and pushed it up 1 point, so at least it has a fresh tomato next to it. But it's not even certified fresh, and it's just getting started. Some people had talked about where the first movie had ended, where its Rotten Tomatoes score was, and we're going to talk about contrasting and comparing the two scenarios, all right? But first off, one has to wonder, and the reviews for the most part, well, we'll talk about them. I think that the worst thing was that they said that it just didn't work and that it was a little boring. And I think that, it would be better if everybody was talking about like some controversial aspect to it, like the first one, where people felt the film could maybe be dangerous and inspire bad things. But now they're just saying, swing and a miss. And that's like the worst thing they could say about the movie. The second worst thing is less gaga than you anticipate, which is what they're saying. And that's really also not good for the movie as well. I haven't seen it yet, Michaela. Only people who were at Venice were able to see it, or like the top trades and outlets. The rest of the reviewers, they're going to want, I'm not sure, they might at this point want to have a couple more reviews come in to change this number. But I think usually it'll be closer to release date. Remember, the movie is like a month out. It's a month out. So I think that's an issue. All right, so why premiere at Venice? Well, the first film was an awards contender, as you know, and in fact, an awards winner. And they're following the exact same strategy with this film. They both debuted at Venice, and they're both opening the first weekend of October, and things worked out very well for the first Joker movie. Let's discuss. But also at the same time, that's where it becomes a little bit worrisome. So while, of course, where Joker ended at Rotten Tomatoes is one thing, but what's important is where did it start? And this was actually sent to me by Steven, so thank you, Steven. When Joker premiered at Venice last time in 2019, it started at 85. And it eventually dropped down to 89% audience score. Woohoo, it's a great movie. I love the movie. But yeah, so the concern is that once other critics start weighing in, the number is going to go down, not up. So that this is where it's starting is very scary. As I told you again, it's also blood in the water. Critics who might be like either or, they're like, is it a negative or a positive? When they see so many negatives, they go, okay, I'll go in the negative category. And so I think there's just some aspect to it to that degree. It just is like blood in the water, or a domino effect. That, I think the score could go down. I don't know if people are going to rescue the movie. That's always something that happens where other critics come in and they go, oh, they were too harsh on it. But I think it's a little bit nerve-wracking. You're just not sure in which direction it's going to go. But last time it went down. It went down significantly from 85. 69 is new. I believe when it was winning Oscars, it was still in the 70s. And eventually it got down to 69%. So that's tough. Now the movie, as some of you are saying, still did extremely well. It was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, all the big ones. Then it walked away with 2, Best Actor for Joaquin Phoenix and then Best Score. And the box office wasn't too shabby either. It made $1 billion and was the only R-rated, thank you, Tom, and welcome back, Ramteen, was the only R-rated movie to make $1 billion until Deadpool and Wolverine moseyed along. So that's all very exciting. That's great. But I think, the question is this movie as good as the first movie? That's crucial. And there are some problems that are baked into this movie that I think are going to, this is not great. All right? I'll tell you right now, I don't see it getting to $1 billion again. I think if it can perform around what Dune Part 2 did, I think Warner Brothers will be happy. This is not great. Okay, so let's talk about Joker today. All right? So the next question is, that was the playbook. All right, the next question is, does Lady Gaga have a Hollywood curse? She's much beloved as a chanteuse, but her acting career ain't going so well. It started out amazing, but then, of course, she had that very unfortunate awards campaign, and then House of Gucci was a disaster. I liked that movie. I mean, it wasn't good at the end, but I thought it was pretty good. I thought she was excellent in it, but it really damaged her brand as an actress. Now, here she is at Venice for the Q&A. I think this is a nice photo. I think here this is a good look for her. She's still being Lady Gaga, but, she's very much an actress. I would agree, Blue Prada. I think that the, Oscar hunger is never a good look. You got to be really careful. If you want it too badly, they don't want to give it to you. So anyway, and also she has been acting long enough to get an Oscar. Cher won an Oscar pretty early on, but it is different. So anyway, that's a pretty good look. I think she looks nice there. But then I feel like this was a mistake. I'm sorry to say it. This was her red carpet look. Margot Robbie and Zendaya last year really set the bar. And I have to say, I've seen Jenna Ortega trying to get attention with her Beetlejuice outfits, and she did a nice job, but it just didn't work, which is interesting to me. And here, Lady Gaga is being Lady Gaga, but I don't think the look is great. You're not looking at it being like, wow, what a great outfit. You're like, okay, I respect it. But I think it takes away from the movie. And I think it takes away from the performance, and I think it takes away from why Gaga is there. I know that a lot of you loved it, and I'm glad that you liked it, and I'm glad that her fans are enjoying it, but I think it hurts her from being perceived as an actress. I think that to me would be the concern, right? Like, I want people to see Harley, not Joker. Not Lady Gaga. All right, so I do wonder, if she might be having a problem with how she's perceived as an actress, is a good way to put it. But then on the other side of the other problem, is that there's a rumored lack of Lady Gaga. The reviews are saying that there isn't much Lady Gaga in this movie. Now, to some degree, Lady Gaga has very much overshadowed the film, with people focusing, intensely on her over Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, which was, I think, something they had to, it's a concern. But if the movie becomes a Lady Gaga vehicle, then it needs to be a Lady Gaga vehicle. The fact that there would be all the hype on Lady Gaga, and then she's very much a supporting role. Now, I was going to talk about, there's rumors of some of the things that were cut that people saw being filmed. I haven't seen the film myself, so I can't say yes or whether or not that's true. But I saw, like, for instance, the dance sequence that they shot on the stairs that had some really cool photos from it that we'd seen. Rumor is that that was cut from the movie. And I think, I think it would be a mistake to do things like that. I think, people want, people are, at this point, this is very much a Lady Gaga movie. And so, that's right, Austin. You don't want to release the Gaga cut to plague this film. I think that's like, I think if word gets out that there isn't a lot of Lady Gaga, there's also the fact that it's a musical, which people are saying does not work. And then here's the big problem. Leaks about the ending. I've been telling you for quite some time, and nobody say what the ending is, please. But I've been telling you for quite some time that I felt that the ending of this movie was a mistake. It's a very big ending, and I feel like if you know the ending, there's a chance that you might not want to see the film. Now, thankfully, they changed a key aspect of the ending, which would have really, really hurt the movie. Luckily, that has been adjusted. But still, the ending is still basically the same. And I feel like a lot of people might, once they hear the ending, say, I don't need to see that in theaters. And that makes me nervous. And since the movie's been out a month in advance, I'm concerned that the ending might leak. For instance, they showed a lot of Deadpool and Wolverine in advance, okay? However, they didn't show the ending. They only showed the first 40 minutes of Deadpool and Wolverine for weeks. They were showing only the first 40 minutes of Deadpool and Wolverine. However, and then the night of the premiere, which was the Tuesday before the movie came out, they had the premiere and they had the press screenings. I was watching the movie that night, and that was the first time, just a couple of days before release, that anyone saw the movie in its entirety. And I think that's the way to do these things. I feel like releasing this film a month in advance, it just not only allows these things to leak, but for them to settle in into the pop culture consciousness. And I think that's not great. So that's my feeling. I feel like it worked for the first Joker to play it at Venice, but I feel like it might have been a mistake for Joker 2. And maybe some of the creative choices were a mistake. Maybe making it a musical was a mistake. I mean, again, I haven't seen it myself. Maybe, having Lady Gaga in the movie, and Hollywood makes this mistake all the time, using her to promote the film from day one, and then not making her a true co-lead, I think is a mistake. I mean, you set audiences' expectations at a certain point. And if they don't, if you don't at least even try to meet that, I think that's really bad. So we'll see how the movie is received. I, of course, have to see it for myself. Some people are fiercely defending it. I hope to be one of them. But I feel like, and also I think comic book movies are in a tough space. I think a lot of people, when I posted this, somebody said some movies, when I posted last night about the Rotten, when it was still Rotten, someone said, maybe not every movie needs a sequel. And I felt that this was a very good warning sign potentially for Barbie. Everybody's saying, oh, give us another Barbie movie, give us another Barbie film. But, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe they should resist. Although, of course, everybody involved in this movie made so much money. I don't know how they're going to feel, whether or not it was, they might feel at the end it was still worth it anyway. All right, does anybody have any questions or comments about this story? And then we'll go on to the next story, which is a doozy. Hey, I'm not Modern Art History. It's good to see you too. Adam Sphere says, I'm just here for the cinematography. I think it should be good. Chico, that better not be a spoiler. I'm taking that out of there. Because if it is Chico, I'm pretty freaking upset with you myself, because I had not heard that. Mother effer. Visionary says Joker 2019 was a different time. That's, I think, true. And Joker was something that was totally new. It was like a totally new kind of movie, but now it's not new. Oh, Jay King! I think it's funny. Someone else wrote me about Luminosity too, and they also like the train game. The train game and the coffee cups. And that person was like, those are my favorite games. And I was like, me too! And I'm glad you're doing Luminosity, Jay King. It's good for your brain. Iron Isis is Joker 3 chances of happening. Well, you know, always we have to see what the box office looks like. But I would say, I mean, honestly, at this point, this is so close, such a close call. Daniel Haradi, how could you have seen the movie last night? And you're going and flying in the face of all the reviews? I mean, again, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't validate your comment. And, you know, I think I'm sorry, I have to say I largely have to go with the reviews at this point. But I'm glad you're at Venice, Daniel. I'm glad. But I forgot what I was saying. Oh, Joker 3. Yeah, I feel like these people, like, where's their picture? They're just surviving as it is. They're barely going to make it out of this alive. So, if you jump off a bridge and live to tell about it, you don't do it twice. Thanks, Ronnie. Oh, Psycho. Yeah. Well, let's not ruin the ending of the movie, everybody. Be very careful. Let's boop into the next one because we're getting into spoiler territory. Okay. Hold on. Oh, for that question, though, Ronnie says, do you think Joaquin dropping out of the other movie hurt this one? No, I don't think that it did. I think that probably hurt his career a little bit and his ability to sign on to new projects because I think people are going to be like, are you going to drop out of my movie? But I think, you know, Joaquin Phoenix has always been, let's say, a unique individual. And so I think, you know, I don't think it would hurt people's perspective of the film. I mean, I wouldn't think so. Jason says, Hollywood needs to get out of this need to follow up. You can't catch lightning in a bottle twice most of the time. But sometimes it's better. Like, Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was a better movie. Terminator 2 was a better movie. You know, hey, Dev, thank you for that. All right, let's boop along. Let's boop along because no more spoilers. Okay, where's the next chapter times? Boop. Ah, George. George. All right, so George R.R. Martin made good on his promise to talk trash about House of the Dragon. So yesterday, you guys like the rectangle boop? All right, hold on. You want chapter times and a rectangle boop? How much stuff do you think I can click on? All right, there you go. Back to the top. All right, so yesterday he posted on his blog, which, by the way, is very low tech. All right, I'm like, geez, George, you can't get someone to make this for you at this point? I mean, I guess I should talk. But, you know, I think it could be a little bit better formatted than that. I'm glad you like the squares so much. George, he posted a blog, all right? And so the blog actually, I couldn't read it at first because, hilariously, he deleted it, all right? Well, I couldn't believe it. I was like, dude, why would you, if you're not going to stand by it, why create the problems for yourself? So it was up for a couple of hours, and some website, we'll put this in the middle because I'm talking about both things, Westeros' Twitter account had archived it. So they were like, he might have deleted it, but you can go read it right here. So I was like, all right, thank you. So I clicked on it, and I was reading his complaints, and it was mostly about blood and cheese. He was having the blood and cheese argument, and he was like, changes from the book. And then he said something about the butterfly effect. You know, if I was Ryan Condal, I'd troll him with butterflies in season 3. And he said, these little changes are going to blow up into big changes because, you know, they create character moments. Although if you think they were going to do with that younger kid they don't have anymore, if you think they were going to have that happen in season 3, you're kidding yourself. There's no way they would put that in a show. I mean, you know, House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones is pretty intense. But I don't think they'd do that. I got to tell you. I think that's, maybe they would reference it, but I'd be like, I don't know, George. I'm surprised you got away with it. So remember, in Blood and Cheese, originally there were supposed to be 3 children. That's right, Dane. Dane knows what I'm talking about with The Bridge Too Far. But anyway, as I explained in my breakdown when that episode aired, originally it had been 3 children, and Helena had not, it played out extremely different than it does on the show. And, I think that I agree with George that his book was more visceral and it was more intense. But I thought that the way they did it on the show was also interesting and created some interesting conversations as well. I mean, everybody was fine with it. Like, if he had gone and complained about the pacing and said not enough happened in season 2, everybody would have hoisted him on their shoulders. But you're like, wow, George, you're so late to this argument. Why are you complaining about it now? Why don't you complain about Blood and Cheese back when the episode dropped? It's like, everybody was like, yes, there are issues with House of the Dragon. But instead, so we thought he was going to talk about those broader issues. But instead, he just was like, they changed my writing. And you're like, dude. Although Doc Hayes has a good point about Nettles. That's a very good point about Nettles, Doc Hayes. I think that would be a better change, but maybe that'll be his, short-lived blog post next season. But I don't understand. So let's do the why. Why do this? Now, George R.R. Martin, that's a picture of him at the premiere for House of the Dragon Season 2. He's on set. They carved his face into that tree at Harrenhal. I mean, they've been really nice to him. And I think that, his lawyer might have said, that's going to maybe change, George. They don't have to invite you to the premiere. I mean, I guess that's the problem. Like, we're going to get to Beau DeMayo in a second. Studios don't want to fight with the creator because then it puts fans in a really difficult position, right? They want to be loyal to the creator, but they don't want to hate. They still want to enjoy the product. It all is like what happened with Zack Snyder, and we're going to talk about Zack Snyder when we talk about Beau DeMayo. But it's a little bit similar here as well. You don't want a tug of war with the studio and the talent for the soul of the IP. And that's kind of what George R.R. Martin is creating here. And I feel like, I don't think he's doing a J.K. Rowling because he hasn't come out against any groups. He's not doing any hate speech. But, I think, everything was going really well. And I think people, for the most part, were like, House of the Dragon Season 2 is like not as good as we wanted it to be. But I think everyone was still looking forward to Season 3. So I don't think that House of the Dragon, it's like one of the last franchises that doesn't have any drama. And it was already kind of getting close with the way people reacted to Season 2. But you're like, dude, why does every franchise have to have this? And, George R.R. Martin brought that on it himself. And I don't, he said he brought these talking points up when they were doing the writing. And that, he's really made a problem for Ryan Condal, by the way. And he said Ryan Condal talked him out of it. But it's like, are they partners or not? Either he was okay with it or he wasn't. And I agree with you, Carl, that 9 times out of 10, the fans are going to side with the creator, which is really difficult for the studio because the studio is the one that's sinking all this money into it. So it's just really, really tough. Let's see here. BR117 says, in my opinion, he came off as unprofessional. Also, the general audience is already confused with there already being, those 4 kids that are running around between Rhaenyra and Daemon. You're like, who the heck are those kids? So, and all the names are the same, I think it was fine. I think it was just fine. And I think that he's creating a problem where there wasn't one. And I don't know if he's trying to call attention to himself. People definitely know who George R.R. Martin is. And as also people have said, he's throwing stones while living in a glass house. He hasn't written a book in years. And everybody just and in fact, him not continuing with writing was what got Game of Thrones, the first show, in trouble in the first place. Because, Benioff and Weiss had to go off on their own. It's been a decade. He hasn't written a new book in a decade. And, and so because he had not finished the story, HBO was forced to finish it themselves, and they did it poorly. So, it's not like he's in a perfect space either. So I just think it's really, really not good. And as for going forward, I hope this just goes away. Luckily, he deleted it. I think it was kind of a silly complaint to begin with. And I think hopefully everybody's just like, that George. and everybody, including himself, moves on. And if I were HBO Warner Brothers, I would want to move on too. I wouldn't hold this against George as long as like he didn't continue with it. I'd be like, look, dude, I don't want to have this kind of a fight. I don't want to, plunge the IP into drama. So let's just get along. But when he's signing his new contract, I might put something in there. That's right, Tenor F. WB's lawyers were like, boop, 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 boop. George R. R. Martin's lawyer? Like, there's no way they called him directly. You would never call the talent directly because, they're very emotional. It's their heart and soul that's in it. You call the agent and the manager and the lawyer who are supposed to be looking after that person's interests and, of course, their own because they get a percentage. And they're like, you got to talk to your client, man. He's killing me. And they're like, George, delete it. And he goes, all right. And he deleted his post. I mean, I don't know why his management should have talked to him when he said he was going to say something. They should have been like, George, you never do what you're going to say. You don't have to write the post. So, all right. So I think it's a difficult spot. Tanweer says, issue with the missing kid is he'd have to stay young till that part since the war lasts only 2 years. Little Joffrey had 3 actors already. Well, yeah, it's just a difficult situation. I think the things that happened to that child are too egregious to put on television, even for House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones. Mecky says, do you think HBO is doing too much with the Game of Thrones property? I think they should focus on one show at a time. Couldn't agree more. I think one show at a time. I do think it's good that there's a show shooting right now because House of the Dragon Season 3 hasn't begun filming yet. So that's fine. Like, if they're going to alternate, so there isn't such a large gap, that's okay with me. But I mean, they shouldn't come out in the same year. It should be one show a year. And I think that would be okay. But yeah, I mean, they just can't do too much with this. I mean, they're talking about, I heard they wanted to do Game of Thrones animation, which I'm actually quite in favor of. Steven says, what happens to the child? Basically, he's like, let's just say killed by a mob. And he's not just like a child. He's a toddler. And he's killed by a mob in a really brutal, vicious way. Like, you're like, think Monica Bellucci and Beetlejuice. And Adam Sphere says he should realize and remember that A Song of Fire and Ice is his legacy, not the shows, and we want the books, George. That's right. I mean, the best thing he could do would be to write a new book. And then HBO would be like, oh, thank you. We're going to tell the real next season. Bye, Andrew. The real next season of Game of Thrones. All right, so let's see here. Any other questions or comments about this story? And we'll go on to the next one. Haunted Autumn wants the Jon Snow show. I don't know. I think it's too late. I would like Dany to be resurrected because, she's part dragon, whatever. Dana O'Leary, House of the Retcon is hilarious. That's funny. That could be a comedy sketch. I love that. Lord Baratheon says, do you think House of the Dragon Season 3 should be 10 episodes? I sure do, but I don't know if it's gonna. I think Warner Brothers might be like, it turned out okay with the lesser episodes. But at least the writers would know that going in, and they could do a better job at the pacing, therefore, because of that. Matt says, I think it's time to adapt other fantasy authors. Well, they're trying, man, with Tolkien, although that's a real cluster F. And then also The Wheel of Time, apparently. And some people are apparently watching that show. That's right, Rashad. Emilia Clarke is very free to film a Daenerys show. All right, I think we're ready for the next one. Okay. Michael, I'm glad you're enjoying Rings of Power Season 2. We'll see how it does on the Nielsen charts. All right. Next story. Here we go. All right. Now, hold on. You guys like the red square, too, so I got to reorganize this next time. All right. Boom, baby. Oh, this just keeps going. Disney's like, are you freaking kidding me with this? Unfortunately, no. All right, so again, I have to be extremely careful because this is a developing story and apparently a developing lawsuit. So I'm going to be extremely careful, and I'll have to only allude to some things that may or may not be true because they have yet to be proven 100%. That's right, Jonathan. The word of the day is allegedly. All right, so my first comment on this is that if this doesn't get studios to finally do background checks, I don't know what will. Because that's one of the big points, that, if they'd asked anybody working on The Witcher if they should hire Beau DeMayo, apparently the answer would be a resounding no. But apparently nobody asked. Same thing, there were rumors about Jonathan Majors, unfortunately, that some people at Yale had said some stuff. You never know. Sometimes, I want to be very careful here. Sometimes this stuff is not true. But you have to do your due diligence. You got to say, okay, how many people feel that way? Why do they feel that way? Do you have any proof? Let me talk to the individual themselves. You have to see what's the scope of it. I think we live in a very complicated world right now where, perspective sometimes can alter things, and so you don't know for sure if things are true. It's very hard. I think the new show English Teacher, which has 2 episodes up on Hulu right now, very funny show, I think actually addresses what it's like to live in today's society quite well. But yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily hear these things and be like, it's over, forget it. I would always give people the benefit of the doubt, but it wouldn't hurt, to hire, there's lots of private investigators out there. Michael says background checks are a legal HR can of worms. Maybe, but I think they're becoming a can of worms even now. So I feel like I think it would behoove any company, especially a large company with deep pockets, to just hire a division that looks into employees. All of them, every single hire. Just be like, I just gotta check it out, man. Okay? Thank you, Adam Sphere. I'm glad you liked my description of X-Men 97. I was pretty proud of that myself. All right? Because, I got to tell you, Josh Loves Movies says he's finished with Beau DeMayo, but I went over because Beau DeMayo retweeted, Deadline covered his OnlyFans story, which I thought was pretty funny itself. That's him on OnlyFans there. All right? The most chaste OnlyFans video you'll ever see, but quite lurid in the legal complications. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a moment. So Deadline covered it, and he retweeted the Deadline article, and below it, there's a lot of people who are like, fight the fight, Beau. So, that's also the world we live in. You might be like, how could anybody be on somebody else's side? And then you're like, but there they are. Like look at our current presidential election. It seems to be almost 50-50. And both sides can't understand how anybody would be on the other side. So that's the world that we live in. So it's tough. So, all right. So, yeah, do the background checks, everybody. Do the background checks. Now, I got that picture from Deadline. Deadline apparently started an OnlyFans account. Or maybe an employee already said, oh, I somehow got one for you. All right, so we posted a new video. There it is. There's a still of it. And I think it's very interesting. Let me see. Actually, I'll bring it in the image, a bigger picture of it. Hold on so you can really see it. Hold on, I gotta find it. There it is. Okay, here it is. And you can see that he's got X-Men 97 artwork behind him. That's going to be a big part of our conversation. All right? Because if I were Disney, that would be the thing that I would be most upset about with that video. All right. So he posted this video, and he said, my lawyer, and his lawyer actually filed the lawsuit. This video goes along with the lawsuit being filed. And he has a very high-powered attorney in Hollywood who has had many clients and has, for some of them, been successful. So this is not a joke. All right, so they said that they want 2 things. They want a jury trial. Oh, ka-ching! Obviously, I think that's not only can they use that to really point out Disney trying to say they couldn't have a jury trial for that woman who died, which was a big, big story, obviously, that made Disney look very bad. And so I think they're obviously not only trying to allude to that, but also you get more money in a jury trial. And you might be able to get people on the jury who would be, who would side with Beau DeMayo. So a jury trial, that's what they're going for. That's funny, Jacob. All right, then also they want immediately to break the NDA. They're claiming that I feel he's already pretty much broken the NDA to a large degree, but they feel that, Beau DeMayo and his lawyer feel that the NDA is illegal, that it's silencing him about egregious matters, and they want a judge to strip out the NDA from his leaving Disney, from that agreement, so that he can say whatever he wants. Ronnie says, why did he sign it? I think he signed it at the time because I'm sure there was probably some, I would assume, obviously we don't know, but usually that kind of a situation has maybe sometimes a settlement if you agree to the NDA. If you agree to what they're asking you, sometimes there is some financial involvement. But I think that there is a chance that while he signed it at the time, he might be feeling that it's costing him more money now. He can't get more work. He's not able to go to the Emmys. I think he's chafing under the NDA, or choking, I guess you could say. And so he feels, he just has to come up for air. And so that's kind of what's happening. All right, then he's being very aggressive, saying that Disney was against him because he is not only an LGBTQ individual, but one of color. And that he said his words that he no longer felt safe at the company. Now, as some people are pointing out, Disney is probably the most friendly LGBTQ business out there. Not only do they very much have that included in their work, but their employees, even back to the days of Walt. Obviously it wasn't as out there back then, but if you watch old footage and you talk to Imagineers and stuff like that, and artists, you can see who was there. And also, as Marco Da Vinci said, Disney literally got into a huge fight with Ron DeSantis over the LGBTQ rights. So they're extremely, I think you would be very hard pressed to argue that it was not a safe space for people who are LGBTQ. So I'd be really curious as to what argument he intends to make. Because I just think Disney could just call in so many people. And, they went to bat for their employees. Bob Chapek unfortunately didn't at first, but when those employees made themselves heard, Disney suffered they're suffering today for that fight. They became the enemy of the conservative groups to this day because of the position that Disney took. Gary, I do not believe that Disney will settle this, and I cannot say why, but I think I would be surprised if they did. They might, but I think that I don't know. It depends if they just want it to go away, but I don't know. I have to tell you, I think they felt they did settle it with the termination agreement and the NDA. But I think that I'd feel at this point, I would feel that even if I settled with him again, that a couple of years down the road he might say things again. This would start again. So I think that's where it becomes very complicated for the company. All right, now I wanted to bring up, Zack Snyder, the Zack Snyder scenario. All right, and fighting with the talent for control of the brand. In this case, it being X-Men and X-Men 97, which has been a very successful show for Disney. And in fact, in his video, Beau DeMayo said, and I saw this in the Deadline coverage. Thank you very much. Beau DeMayo said that Disney did not deserve a show like X-Men 97. Now, that's a very, very, very aggressive statement. Now, let me see what they do to season 2. If they mess up season 2, then I'll be like, whoa, what'd you guys do? But he's obviously saying it for other reasons. But it's a powerful comment to make. And I think that Disney, doesn't need to fight for who's in control of X-Men 97 with Beau DeMayo. Just like to this day, DC has to fight with DC fans, Snyder fans, over whose vision of DC really is the most important. And so I think I can understand why Beau DeMayo would put those pictures up because, that's what he's fighting for. That's the project that was, and the project's extremely well received. He's reminding you of his art. But at the same time, he's also to some degree, from Disney's perspective, holding it hostage. So it's a complex scenario. And that's why I meant about brand ownership. I think that factors in there as well. you know? And I think, Zack Snyder was going around tweeting a lot of stuff. And to this day, he's tweeting still, or on Vero, kind of like poking at DC. Although I think he gets along better with James Gunn, so I think he's dialed that down a little bit. And also remember, Zack Snyder was definitely wronged by Warner Brothers. And when Zack Snyder was doing a lot of his stuff, he and Warner Brothers had gotten back together. They're still talking maybe him still working with Warner Brothers in the future. Because, I think, I guess that's the other thing that I want to touch on, okay? Now, again, Beau DeMayo says this is a smear campaign, and these things aren't true. So many people have heard these things. If it's a smear campaign, it's an extremely effective one because it's coming from so many different people. Everybody's hearing it, and they're here, and the things, it's not just how he carries himself. Allegedly, it's more than that. That's all I can say. But, again, Disney would have to offer proof, and Beau DeMayo would have to offer proof that it's not true. So that's, and I think that's where it's just really tough. It's a very tough situation, and I'm not quite sure. I think this is a real headache for Disney, and I'm not quite sure how they're going to be able to handle it. So does anybody have any questions or comments about this story? Jacob Knight, I'm not sure what if his NDA has a clause about not suing. An NDA is usually a non-disclosure, which I don't think that's about like talking about stuff. I don't think that would be in there. And he already filed the lawsuit. The lawsuit's been filed. Psycho says, do you think that James Gunn would hire him? I do not. One thing the worst thing you can be in Hollywood is litigious. It's one of the reasons that hardly anybody ever sues in Hollywood, because people feel it's, being labeled litigious would be worse for you in the long run than winning your lawsuit. You have to feel it's over for you. You have to feel like you're never going to work again, and all you can have to do is get your parachute of a lawsuit. And so, that kind of gives you some idea of how dire Beau DeMayo must feel things are for him, that he would take this route. Because Ricardo says that Scarlett Johansson sued. She did sue, but I think Scarlett Johansson felt that she had all of the other actors on her side. Scarlett Johansson, I got to tell you, she's a real fighter. People were talking about her being on the Time Magazine AI Top 100 Influential People, but she is influential in that she's a big target for AI, and she fights back. She's not, she's not an influential person in shaping AI proactively. She's a big person in shaping AI defensively. And so I think that, and also Bob Chapek was really unpopular. So I think she picked the great time to sue Disney. I don't think she would have sued Bob Iger. I don't think Bob Iger ever would have let it get there. I think that she had the wind at her back. But I'm obviously there are always exceptions, but it's really, it's really a big deal if someone does a lawsuit like this. Judge Judy says Disney strongly supported the LGBT community, but didn't take a similar stand for the black community when DeSantis. Well, Judge Judy, I can't speak to that. I'm not familiar with what you're saying. That would be a shame if true. I think that Disney is trying to improve their track record in that area, but they probably aren't as far along as they are with the LGBT community. I'm not sure, I don't know how diverse the employees are at Disney, but I do know that there are quite a number of LGBTQ employees at Disney. And so that's one of the things that I think has helped, shape the company that it is today and their policies. And I think in a great way, I want to highlight. I feel very strongly, I think the LGBTQ community is so greatly responsible for the magic of Disney and have been since day one. Walt obviously was the captain of the ship, but he couldn't have gotten there without, I'm sure, a very large number of LGBTQ people. So if you enjoy Disney, you really should give the credit where it belongs, largely in a very big part to the LGBTQ community. I'm not saying it's 100% that community, but very, very important contributions and leadership. Jerry says Disney will settle. They don't want to go through the discovery process. That's really a difficult time. It will be okay, says he mostly remixed beloved stories. While good, Beau didn't create the show from scratch. I don't know about that. I think, speaking of Beau DeMayo as an artist, I think he did do a really strong job with X-Men 97. And I think he was willing to broach adult subjects and, not shock. I think he had like he went in a direction that I think fans really wanted to go in. And I think that, he understood that. He understood the assignment, as is said. Green Lantern's Light says, could DeMayo be referencing his LGBTQ experience with Bob Chapek? I don't believe he had any experience with Bob Chapek. I do not think, it does not seem, I don't know what his case is, but that does not seem to be the case. Adam Sphere, I think at this point it would be hard for Beau DeMayo, unless he wins this case, to be hired by anybody. You're saying he could maybe be a comic book writer. I think the only path for him right now is to self-publish, self-create, self-distribute, and see if there's an audience for him that will still support him. Arak says, great conversation, Grace. Question 1, isn't this a perfect example of how toxicity creeps into fandoms, making it hard to enjoy what we love? I think that fans I don't know if this is ever going to go away, and so I think fans need to learn to compartmentalize. And I think, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with X-Men 97 Season 2, right? I think that we can't let these arguments hijack our enjoyment of this content, which is happening. Let's see here. There are 3 sides to every story. The first 2 belong to the parties involved, and the third one is the truth. That's a great saying. I support them going to truth and sharing them. I suspect you're going to find that Disney's in the right here based on what I've heard. So I'm real surprised that this has even gotten to this point. But, I'm open to being surprised. That's why we have a legal system. I mean, you can't deny him his day in court. Luis, Season 2 is already written, but they have adjusted it apparently. So I'm nervous about that. Weil says, with him as head writer and the tone, it's going to be hard to keep that level in Season 3. Mind you, we haven't even seen Season 2. I would hope that whoever's taking over the show really sits down and tries to understand why Season 1 was so popular, instead of being like, oh boy, now are they my toys? I hope that they take to heart that people just want to see that continued. Swamp Thing says, if X-Men 97 had flopped, do you think this would have happened? That's a good question. Probably not, to be honest with you. Daniel says, unfortunately, I think he is very much the reason why X-Men was so successful, but I also believe the allegations, Daniel also believes the allegations made against him. I suspect a lot of people are probably in the same camp, Daniel. This is very much separating the artist from the art. And as I said when I first covered the Beau DeMayo situation, I think that everybody agrees that he's definitely very talented. And he did a wonderful job with X-Men 97. The issue is with how he allegedly conducted himself. Bye, Elliot. Jesse the Good Witch would want to hear from possible victims, even if they are anonymous, not just the company. Well, that's tough, I mean, these days, you can. It's the same reason that Guard at Arlington didn't want to step forward. I would only want people to do what they feel comfortable with. And nobody knows. I mean, I don't want to talk about that. That's a complex situation. Aubrey says that most people don't believe victims even with evidence. That's sad, Aubrey. Unfortunately, that's often true. But you're right. It is Q&A time, Mystic. But I think we're getting better at that. Okay. Q&A time, baby. You can ask me anything that you would like till 5:34, and then I must go. Nacho says, hi, Grace. Missed the Joker conversation, but I'm disappointed in Harley's portrayal. Seems like Punchline rather than Harley. Well, I haven't read any of the reviews. I just want to see the movie. I hope that's not the case. Knox says, do you think Joe Locke's recent comments about the Marvel fan base will hurt Agatha becoming successful? Fans were offended on X today. I didn't see what he saw today. I know that Joe Locke has chosen violence, and I understand where he's coming from, but I wish that someone would advise him against it. He's such a nice person, and he's so talented. I just do not want another acolyte. Jesus says, if present-day Grace could talk to 2008 Grace, what would you say to her? Don't take stuff too seriously, I think is a good bit of life advice for everyone. Ben 10 says, maybe a new Gladiator trailer soon? Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe, I'm not sure what they'd want to put it with a movie. So maybe towards the end of the month. Mystic, I was going to do my Beetlejuice spoiler review. Was going to go out today, but I can only do 3 videos a day, right? And my notifications don't go up. And also I have to go and do something today after all. That's taking up some of my time that I didn't want to. So the Beetlejuice spoiler review will go up tomorrow. It'll go up tomorrow in the late morning. Elise, I will definitely be covering Agatha, for sure. Someone had a fun idea of what I should wear. Jico had a fun idea for what I should wear in my breakdown, so I'm going to try and do that. I think that's funny. Chris says, I'm so sad to see Joker 2 getting low reviews. Does the 12-minute standing ovation mean anything? I don't think so. I think, they count these times. Everything gets a long standing ovation. And I think that's almost sometimes more for the talent than even sometimes the movie itself. Lisa, I think I will watch the presidential debate next week. I actually, unfortunately, have a press screening, but the debate's not till 9 o'clock, so I hope I can catch it. But I'll certainly look into it afterwards. Oh, I hope it goes well. I'm real nervous. I think it's going to be brutal. Let's see here. Marduk says, Chaos was surprisingly good. So much better world building than any Neil Gaiman. Do you plan to watch or review it? No, I think I'm not. I don't think, there's just, maybe I'm watching the new Nicole Kidman show today on Netflix. That's what I'm excited to watch. I saw how much Jeff Goldblum is in it. I saw the trailer and I was like, I'm on to you. You shot Jeff Goldblum for like 2 or 3 days in one location, and then you sprinkled him throughout your show to make him seem like a larger character. I hate that. MM92 says, I enjoyed your Wicked trailer breakdown. Thank you. I'm so confused if it's just part 1 because the trailer seems to show stories from Act 2. I heard it was still part 1, just a part 1, but we'll see. I think that it would benefit them to make it just one part, but then how much of a story are you going to lose because they shot 2 movies worth of footage? Marco, I'm still off soda for the most part. I snuck a Diet Pepsi here and there, I'm afraid. But I got to get back to being healthy. Don't be like me. Go back to when you were healthy. I was healthy me. That's ideal. Your little brother Gabriel says, Grace, do you think the backlash that Snow White is getting right now will hurt its box office? It looks like a good film. The problem with Snow White is because of reshoots and stuff. It's just so expensive. I think it's very much like The Little Mermaid in many ways. And I hope that it makes around that amount of money. It looks good to me. I think the dwarves don't look great. But I think that otherwise it looks really good. So. David Flynn says, just wondering why you hated The Bear so much. I did think it was a weak season. I just thought it was too slow. I thought there wasn't enough stuff going on in it. I just had a lot of problems with it. Michael Macenas, Only Murders in the Building is phenomenal this season so far. As Polk said, it was renewed for season 5. It's the best it's been since season 1. We'll see where the rest of the season goes, but wow. What an incredible season of television. For a show to be that good in season 4 is really rare and exciting. William says, Twisters and 40X was amazing. Did a double feature with Twisters too. My parents also got to see their first Broadway show, The Lion King. Oh, I'm glad you're having such a good time. That sounds fantastic. Lord Baratheon says, do you have any Marvel tea? Don't get me in trouble. Let's see here. Big Lee Chu says, we had a great year of television this year. What are the next series coming up that we should be excited to discuss? Oh, I was impressed that Arcane made such a splash today. You know, they'd had a teaser which no one paid attention to, so I felt I could skip this, and I went with Wicked instead. I'm glad I went with Wicked, because so many of you love it so much. But, like from a business perspective, I should have covered Arcane. But, I don't know, I'm surprised people reacted so well to Arcane, considering it was like almost all female characters. So, I guess, again, you know, maybe, you know, the toxic people. Oh, thank you, Shamshire. That's very nice of you. Maybe it hasn't shown up on their radar yet. I don't know, but let's see here. Brian really wants me to talk about the Reagan movie. You know, I'm glad that the people who saw it enjoyed it. And I think it served its purpose. That's what I'll say about the Reagan movie. It did what it was supposed to do. LOL of the Rings. Did I thank you? If not, thank you very much for that. That's very kind of you. Let's see here. Zeke says, Grace, what are your thoughts on the upcoming Twilight animated series on Netflix? It'll be told from Edward's perspective. I'd be shocked if there was any blood left in that, but let's see. IMJMS, I will see Transformers 1. That's actually the press screening on the night of the debate, which I think is very funny. Carl, I will definitely watch Arcane Season 2, and I will review Arcane Season 2. Boy, I do not remember pretty much anything from Season 1. Maybe I should rewatch that. Maybe that would be a good thing for me to do, because it's been a minute. Let's see here. And IMJMS, I do plan to break down the Penguin series, at least starting out, and we'll see if there's interest in it. Rashad says, Grace, will you be watching reviewing Rebel Ridge, the Aaron Pierre movie coming out on Netflix? It looks so good! I saw somebody else mention that. I'll have to look into it. Let's see here. 80s model. So nice to see you as always. I'm late but wanted to say hi, and you're a Diamond member now. Very nice. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying the Wicked breakdown as well. That makes me feel very nice. Elise has the Hulu Disney Max bundle. Worth the money. Yeah, I should have gotten the bundle. I think I subscribed to one for a year. I'm paying too much for streaming. I got to figure this out. Daniel says, Grace, I hope you're not annoyed at me. I was just my takeaway from the film. Oh, Daniel Haradi, I'm not upset with you. I couldn't be angry with you. That's very sweet. I'm sorry that you thought that I was. Psycho says, thoughts on 110 million opening for Beetlejuice. I would love it if it opened that big. What a great time for the movie industry. You know, everybody wants to see the movie industry succeed. Boy, the theaters are really pushing it. This movie plays like every half hour. I mean, they're just adding more and more screens. They're like, see Beetlejuice. So I hope that doesn't mean it's front-loaded, because the reviews, you know, everybody got upset with me, but then all the other reviews started coming in after me, and they're also like, it's only okay. But I think it scratches the itch, and you'll see it. We'll talk about it more in depth in my spoiler review tomorrow. Cat Shack, they had a first photo of that new Golden Girls series, and I think it looks fantastic. Let's see here. Yeah, Brian says a lot of Beetlejuice showtimes at his theater. Tenerife, I think Beetlejuice 1 is definitely worth watching. I love that movie. It's a phenomenal film. Psycho, my Beetlejuice spoiler review is about 25 minutes or so, I think. I haven't finished it. I haven't finished editing it, so I'm not sure how long it is. But it's a little bit longer than the review, which was 20 minutes, so it's like a scooch longer than that. Aided Buffalo, no, I'm just going to jump to the next weekend on the next movie math. You know, nothing too big happened last week. Oh, David, I'm so glad you're going to include me when you watch Beetlejuice for the first time by queuing up my watch along. I appreciate that. Oh, man, Preet, I'm glad I got you to go check out Beetlejuice. I hope you have a good time. I think it's a very good Halloween movie. And then, thank you, Alberto, for gifting a membership. That's very sweet of you. All right, I better get going. It's 5:34. I had a wonderful time talking to you. Haunted Autumn, they're doing a Golden Girls type show, but with 3 gay men and Nathan Lane is one of them, Matt Bomer, and then they're living with his mother, Nathan Lane's character's mother. And they cast the Blanche, which is a black actor from Broadway. I'm not familiar with his work. I'm not aware of their pronouns, but I have to say I think the casting's very strong. It looks like a very, very funny show to me. In fact, it was one of the fastest pickups to series ever, based on the pilot shoot. So I think that could be really good. All right, everybody, I'll see you soon. The Beetlejuice spoiler review will go up tomorrow, late morning, and then for sure, Movie Math will return on Sunday. All right, everybody, bye. Bye-bye.